Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and we're back with more news. I literally finished uploading the last video, went to bed, woke up, and there is more. I said we weren't going to be doing a lot more, but more has come out. Or I should say, a whole lot of nothing actually has come out, but a whole lot of nothing from some very important people. So let's get our ducks in a row here. So if you do not know, and this is the first video you're watching to get introduced, I recommend going to watch my other videos that have the OGL in the title. You should know they're the ones that did really well on the channel. But a brief overview, Wizards of the Coast, publishers of D&D 5th edition, have come out with a new OGL, or they had a draft of a new OGL that was very dismaying, to say the least. It was predatory. It was something that was going to take royalties from people making content on D&D 5e content, and also imply that they would gain access to your product by signing into their 1.1 OGL. And this has caused a huge stir. And, of course, other publishers have been fighting back. If you want to see information on that business, you can check out the new Orc video that recently came out with Paizo and Open RPG on the front. But that's not important to what's happening here. What's important to what's happening here is Wizards of the Coast messed up. And they were supposed to say something earlier this week. They didn't. And then they were going to do it the next day, and they didn't. And now today, they finally have something that they want to say, and it's a whole lot of nothing. So let's go to the tweet first. The tweet reads, "Over the past week, we have witnessed an incredible outpour of passion and dedication from our community working together to protect and cultivate the inclusive environment of Dungeons & Dragons. Please read our update on the open game license." So, okay, it's a twit longer, essentially. They got a lot more than just a tweet's worth of information to say, but we can at least look at this tweet and kind of break it down. So, right here, it says, "An outpour of passion and dedication." That's one way to put it. More like stress, anxiety, and fear, followed by people suddenly needing to group together because they felt threatened by you. But sure, passion, dedication. I mean, it was dedication to some degree on a, flight or fight response, but okay. And that's about it. They could have said anything else. They could have said, all right, so we understand that what we did was wrong. Let us explain our thoughts behind this. But no, they're not taking any responsibility. In fact, they're trying to spin this as if it was a good thing. Like, they didn't even mention in this one tweet that anything was wrong. They're just saying, we witnessed so much passion, dedication, and it's tragic. All right, but it gets worse. Let's go to the link that they have here that goes to a twit longer on D&D Beyond, an official blog on D&D Beyond. "When we initially conceived of revising the OGL, it was with three major goals in mind. First, we wanted the ability to prevent the use of D&D content from being included in hateful and discriminatory products. Second, we wanted to address those attempting to use D&D in Web3, blockchain games, and NFTs by making clear that the OGL content is limited to tabletop role-playing content like campaigns, modules, and supplements. And third, we wanted to ensure that the OGL is for the content creator, the homebrewer, the aspiring designer, our players, and the community, not major corporations to use for their own commercial and promotional purpose." All right, so that's the first paragraph of like 6. I guess we could say 3 because there's a lot of like mini paragraphs. Let's break this one down and read what they're saying. So their first goal was it wasn't meant to be used for hateful or discriminatory products. None of what the draft said mentioned discriminatory products or hateful products. It just was about the license in general. If you wanted it to legally state we didn't want it to be used for such things, you would have stated in some form of legalese that we do not condone and we will personally persecute those who use our products in malintent, discriminatory practices, yada, yada, yada. That's not what it said. Plain and simple. You were putting a death grip on the content, and thus now you're saying you're doing that to protect people. Brilliant. Okay, great. Second, it wasn't meant for NFTs, pretty much. You can boil that all down to we didn't want it being used in NFTs. Then you could have easily have stated in your draft that it was not to be used in non-tabletop related contents. That simple, very easy, that, you know, this license is only for use with tabletop content, yada, 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 rather than coming up with an excuse that the original OGL was only ever meant for, you know, tabletop SRDs, whatever kind of content. So yeah, that's already a big drop right there. There's so many different ways you could have taken it where you could have even stated we don't want our products to be used in this, so we're making this declaration. Done. That would have been very clear and was not your intent. You didn't care. Honestly, if an NFT came out and did well, you'd probably be like, okay, as long as you give us a share cut, fine. We know you, Wizards of the Coast. We do. Third and last, we want to ensure that the OGL is for the content creator, blah, 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 blah. We wanted to make sure that our content was only for people who are playing our tabletop game. Okay, I mean, that's kind of what you established last time because you were saying that the OGL was more or less focused on just anything produced for tabletop content. But that nothing in the original draft even stated really what it was that you were really trying to say here. Like, it made it feel predatory. It made it feel that if you were too successful with whatever content you were making, that you wanted to cover the pie. That's not the case if this is what your statement is, obviously. You wouldn't have made it seem like if you were more successful, you were more likely to be targeted by us. So, already some pretty big fails, but let's continue because they don't stop. Driving these goals were two simple principles. Our job is to be good stewards of the game, and the OGL exists for the benefit of the fans. Nothing about those principles has wavered for a second. That's a bold-faced lie. If you wanted to be good stewards, why would you have... First of all, I didn't like your subscription model for D&D Beyond in the first place. I felt that was a very shitty way to go about it, but eventually everyone just kind of gave into it, right? So it helped a lot of people, so whatever. You had something there. But then you wanted more. Then you wanted to do more stuff. So that not only that, but the leaks came from people who were concerned that you guys were trying to wring out the wallets of individuals. And none of this statement here mentions those leaks, why they were coming out, or the statements those people made that you guys were more frustrated with the community for not handing over their wallets. So I don't think that makes you a good steward, and I don't think that your idea of this new OGL was to make it for the fans. In fact, that completely contradicts your earlier statement because your first three points were purely for keeping other people out of the game that you didn't think deserved the license, more or less. It was really nothing to do with the fans, and the language did nothing to reassure people that the fans and the homebrewers were going to be safe from this. So, two real big bold-faced lies, literally in the very next sentence, I guess. Let's continue. That was why our early drafts of the new OGL included the provisions they did. That draft language was provided to content creators and publishers so their feedback could be considered before anything was finalized. We're going to talk about that here in a second. In addition to language allowing us to address discriminatory and hateful conduct and clarifying what types of products that the OGL covers, our drafts included royalty language designed to apply to large corporations attempting to use OGL content. It was never our intent to impact the vast majority of the community. Now, I do believe there's some half-truths in all of this, but the draft language was provided to content creators and publishers so their feedback could be considered before anything was finalized. Then why did everyone say they were leaks? Why did everyone say that this wasn't even everything? It sounds like the leaked information was your idea, which they'll actually say here shortly. It wasn't, I guarantee. Because if it was your idea, you would have mentioned a while ago about what was going on. And on top of that, you would have not gone through with telling people what was going on all last week and this week. In fact, if your idea was to give this to content creators and publishers, why did some of the biggest channels in tabletop not mention that they were a part of the process? Another just straight up lie. It's astounding they think people are this dumb. Now, the language allowing for addressing discriminatory hateful conduct, none of it was targeted towards that specifically. And the royalties targeting large corporations. What? You're afraid of large corporations adding to your game that's giving you more money anyway? I mean, I can understand if you want something, officially published like Critical Role does. In fact, Critical Role has done a few things just straight through D&D, and I'm sure you could cut similar deals with other people. So why would you be so scared of other large corporations dipping into it? It's a good question. I can understand wanting to protect your product and from other large corporations. I mean, it's a cutthroat world out there in the big business game. So I get that. That was not what the language was really stating or emphasizing. But we can give you a slight pass on this. You're writing this with the intent of targeting large corporations, which is why when you state that the vast majority of the community was not your target, I can believe that, honestly, because you would have really nothing to gain from most people making homebrew content. And I actually said this in my earlier videos. This is not really meant for everyone. They're not going to pursue everyone, just the people who were successful. And targeting people just because they're successful is very scummy business practice. So, I don't know. This one is, besides a straight up lie in the middle of it, there's a lot of this is a law of half-truths for sure. Let's continue. However, it's clear from the reaction that we rolled a 1. It has become clear that it is no longer possible to fully achieve all 3 goals while still staying true to our principles, so here's what we're doing. You rolled a 1, but it was because you guys didn't know what game you were playing. You guys made a very bad call, and it's obvious that you were caught with you were caught red-handed, pretty much. But let's see what their goals are, right? The next OGL will contain provisions that allow us to protect and cultivate the inclusive environment we are trying to build and specify that if it covers only content for TTRPGs. That means that other expressions such as educational and charitable campaigns, live streams, cosplay, VTT, etc. will remain unaffected by any OGL update. Content already under 1.0A will also remain unaffected. So what does that mean, right? If you're coming out with something else but 1.0A is not changing, what did you change, right? So that's already just more lying and more just trying to produce fanfare. Like, oh no, we understood. Also, you were already including language that was specifically targeting TTRPG content. So that wasn't an issue, really. It was how you were going about doing it. Also, if you weren't interested in targeting things like educational and charitable live streams, cosplay, VTT use, or whatever, why were you in discussion with things like Kickstarter about these royalties? I know the Kickstarter mostly produces just third-party content for the tabletop game, but it could be argued that if it's for TTRPG specifically, virtual tabletop systems applies under that. So, yeah, I'm sure you weren't really meaning charitable campaigns or things like cosplay, because that would be ridiculous. But a lot of this is just not true and not what your intent was, and it was obvious by the wording that you wrote. Let's continue. What it will not contain is any royalty structure. It also will not include the license-back provision that some people were afraid was a means for us to steal work. That thought never crossed our minds, sure. Under any new OGL content, you will own the content you create. We won't. Any language we put down that will be crystal clear and unequivocal on that point. The license-back language was intended to protect us and our partners from creators who incorrectly allege that we steal their work simply because of coincidental similarities. Yes, purely coincidental. As we continue to invest in the game that we love and move forward with partnerships in film, television, and digital games, that risk is simply too great to ignore. The new OGL will contain provisions to address that risk, but we will do it without a license back and without suggesting we have rights to content you create. Your ideas and imagination are what makes this game special, and that belongs to you. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, the fact that you made something that was, one, you stated could be revoked, but what you got from other people couldn't be revoked, was very nefarious language, to say the least. But, alright, so your thought was never to take people's stuff, that you would coincidentally come up with the same ideas as people. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can easily make up the same things for a game when everyone's kind of thinking in the same direction, right? That was the problem, though, is your idea about this was like, oh, well, if we just happen to post something that's very, very similar, it's just fishy. It's really fishy. Obviously, that's something that you should speak with the content creator that made something that was a little bit more similar, that came out before your content, about what was coming out. But that is all fishy. Also, all this nonsense about protecting yourself from other big corporations, you're making yourself look like a victim here. When who's out for you? Which big corporations are currently out there trying to make D&D content and is using the OGL 1.0A to do so? Tell me, please. I'll be more than happy. Anyone in the comments, please tell me down below. Where is this coming from? Because this threat that you're imposing, no one is really going after you for. That's straight nonsense. And the fact that you got caught trying to steal other people's content, and you're like, no, that wasn't our intent at all. So you were planning on stealing other corporations' content? Wasn't that just going to be another similarity, another coincidence? No. You're making yourself look like you're under fire from a non-existent enemy force. This is just pandering to a victim complex for people you want to make feel sorry for you. This is straight nonsense. Let's continue. A couple of last thoughts. First, we won't be able to release the new OGL today. Oh, I wonder why. Because we need to make sure that we get it right, but it is coming. So they're going to do something. Second, you're going to hear people say that we won, and say that we won and that we lost. That was very horribly written, because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. Those people will only be half right. They won, and so did we. Woo! Woof! Wow, what an incredibly petty and very, oh goodness, what a very small-minded thing to say, honestly. We didn't lose, we both won. Wizards, please, sound more like a sore loser. That's terrible, and it makes you look stupid. Take your beatings like a real company and show some humility. Don't just say, no, we both won. Disgusting. Let's finish this up, shall we? Last paragraph. Our plan was always to solicit the input of our community before any update to the OGL. Yeah. So why did the leaks come out like a week before you were planning on sending them out? Right? Like, wasn't the old OGL supposed to be delivered on the 6th and then go into effect on the 13th, literally a week later? What nonsense are you guys talking about, right? The drafts you've seen were an attempt to do just that. Yeah, the leaks were intentional. Sorry, I may be hamming this up a little bit, but this is just straight horse pucky. Literally, our leaks were an intention. We're actually the mastermind. Shifts glasses. Nonsense. We want to always delight fans and create experiences together that everyone loves. We realize we did not do that this time, and we are sorry for that. We're sorry. Our goal was to get exactly the type of feedback on which provisions worked and which did not, which we ultimately got from you. Was it? Where was the official announcement? Everyone was saying this was not official, they could change it, yada, yada, yada. Where was the official tweets or any kind of messaging saying, hey, this is what we're coming out with, tell us what you think below. Hey, we're doing a draft, tell us what you think, community. Nonsense. Any change this major could only have been done well if we were willing to take the feedback, no matter how it was provided. So we are. So was it intentional or wasn't it? Because this implies that this feedback you received was not in the way you were intending. Thank you for caring enough to let us know what works and what doesn't, what you need and what scares you. Without knowing that, we can't do our part to make the new OGL match our principles. Finally, we'd appreciate the chance to make this right. We love D&D's devoted players and the creators who take them on so many incredible adventures. We won't let you down. Okay, so let's finish this up here with some more bullshit. Finally, we appreciate the chance to make this right. Okay, what do you mean make this right? You mean we're going to do a better OGL next time and that's you making it right? No. What about all the stress you caused people? What about the stress you caused your own people as indicated in the emails? What are you doing to make this right to anyone? What are you doing to make this right to anyone that other corporations had to get together to make a new gaming license to oppose you? What can you possibly do to make this right? Tell me, please. This last paragraph is the worst in this whole document. It made it seem like it was all their idea, that they were willing to communicate, that they were accepting of feedback, that they're taking responsibility, that they're going to do it right. They've done none of this at all. This is nonsense. No one should be able to put up with what Wizards does after a statement like this. This is purely bad. Unequivocally. Sorry, I'm a little angry because this language is just hurting so many people who love formal tabletop that I've also played in. I did Pathfinder, I do Pathfinder. I did do D&D 5e. I actually love D&D 5e. I actually started doing GMing for Adventures League, and I enjoyed my time doing it. While I think Pathfinder 2e is just a better game, at least for me specifically, I still have played it on occasion, and I have friends who absolutely love it. This nonsense cannot stand. If you are buying D&D products, know that this is the corporation that you're supporting. And I'm not going to tell you what games you can play. I'm not going to tell you what you should do with your money. I just want you to know what you're doing. That's all. So after that heated part here, we got one more, unfortunately, because it's going to be coming from Critical Role. And this video has already gone on super long, but all three of these came out and I do feel like they're connected, so I'm going to include it in this video, and I don't just feel like making a ton of videos on the same topic, so bear with me, there's a little bit more. A message from Critical Role's official staff here on Twitter. Critical Role has always supported creators in game development in the tabletop space. We stand by our industry peers, as well as anyone who takes a risk creating a new system or developing an original idea. The beauty of gaming comes from the opportunity to share inclusive, diverse, and compelling stories from a wide spectrum of creators. That's exactly why we launched our own game publishing company a few years ago, because we believe that broadening the field of creators boosts the entire industry. The success we have experienced is thanks to the passion and interest of the greater tabletop community, and we commit to fostering an environment that allows everyone the opportunity to easily share the stories they wish to tell. Critical Role. So let's break this down a little bit, shall we? So we stand by our industry peers. They've done this in the past before. They've stepped up and they've voiced their opinions on what they think is better for the community in general. I agree with this statement. As well as anyone who takes a risk creating a new system or developing an original idea. So this is the part that is sticking with me a little bit. And there might be some double speak here that we're missing, but we're not talking about a new system, right? We're talking about third-party D&D content. That was kind of the big problem with the OGL. That's not what we're talking about here, Critical Role. So that seems very off base. They go on and they state wide spectrum, different creators, yada yada. It seems like they're heavily pushing the idea of they support people producing other content, not D&D content. And this could be for a wide variety of reasons. Now, my speculation, and here is what my thought is. First of all, this says nothing. This says nothing about what's been going on. This doesn't state the Critical Role's idea of the OGL or nothing. And I don't think they can state anything. Critical Role is very closely tied to D&D Beyond and D&D, and they also have a Amazon show that is roughly D&D related. I think that they're under some heavy NDAs, and there's a lot that they can't say about what's going on. And so through this, I'm thinking that they're promoting going to other systems. I think this is actually what they're intending. Without saying it, and I'm not speaking for Critical Role, I think they're trying to push people to other systems because they understand what's going on is very shitty, and they're promoting the risk of checking out new games and new systems and with their own original ideas, not taking off of D&D. That is my thought, that they can't say anything. They're probably under some NDAs, and thus this is all they can say, and they can only allude to pushing towards other kinds of content. And the fact that this response by Critical Role came out today, the same time that Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, and I guess D&D Beyond have made their statement, can only mean that today was the only day that they could officially make a statement as Critical Role members. And since most of the Critical Role cast members are also co-owners in the company that they are running, they can't even make those statements on their official Twitters because they are representatives of their company. So as much as this is a non-statement from Critical Role, I do feel like there's some kind of hidden speech in here. Now, it could be nefarious, it could not. Whatever your intent or your way of deciphering this is, I think could be valid. This does not mean that Critical Role deserves to be harassed. Obviously, if they were capable of saying something sooner, they would have. But the fact that this came out today, the same time that everything has come out with Wizards of the Coast and D&D Beyond, indicates to me that this is mostly not their intent. That's just my opinion. I'm just a small content creator, and thus what I have to say doesn't really matter. But I wanted to deliver this information to you all anyway. And hopefully, anyway, this will be the last bit of news I'll have to share on this. The new orc is coming out. I think that's great. Unless that has some weirdness to it, I don't feel like I'm going to be doing any reporting on it. I don't think I need to. I think it's in everyone's best interest. If Wizards does any more stuff, maybe I'll come back. If Critical Role makes an actual full statement or an actual statement that actually says anything, I may come back and say something on that as well. But fingers crossed, I won't have to unless it's at least for Critical Role's benefit, because I love Critical Role and I hope that they, understand the pain the community has gone through. And I hope that, they do something. But I understand legally that they're probably not. And if anyone is more legally tied to Wizards who's not officially a part of Wizards, it's Critical Role. So we all have to understand that as one of their closest partners, Critical Role is under a very heavy magnifying glass and thus they cannot make moves carelessly. But that's going to be it for me. If you've enjoyed this video, please at least leave a like. I want to make sure that this gets out to as many people as possible and that this kind of breakdown is brought to as many people's attention as possible, as well as my thoughts on what's going on with Critical Role. And if you want to see more content, hopefully not like this, but other tabletop related content, please subscribe to see more. We're doing a lot of Pathfinder content, as well as deep dives into other tabletop systems for those who are looking to make a trip outside of the fantasy space when it comes to tabletop. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.